All right, everybody, we're going to get started. And if y'all don't mind over there, our wonderful and kind volunteers, let's start pouring that Bruery beer first. Yeah, I got to get some beer in your glass. I promised you that you would sit here comfortably and get beer in your glass without having to stand in line like an asshole. So welcome to the Brewers Studio. My name's Justin. I'm with the Brewing Network, and I am lucky enough to get to host these panels each and every year, which means I do about 90 minutes of work and then just drink the rest of the weekend with the rest of the brewers. I have the best job in the world on occasion. So we have a wonderful panel for you today, and it's about sour beers and the future from here. And this panel was curated by my good friend here, Chad Jacobson from Crooked Stave. You all know Crooked Stave. That's we're going to get that beer in your glass. The first beer you have, and the panelist right next to me, is Jeremy Grinkley from the Bruery. Everybody loves themselves some Bruery beer. In the third seat over there, he's kind of an acquaintance, occasionally a friend, a pretty good brewer, Jay Goodwin from the Rare Barrel. Jay actually also hosts his own show on the Brewing Network. It's not very good, but it is called the Sour Hour. It's all about sour beer, and he does interview. His interviews are good. His interviewees are good. And in fact, I think he's interviewed our fourth guest, Corey King from Side Project. Yeah. I made Corey's beer is going to be last because I figured it would keep you all here. Because you don't want to go stand in the Side Project line, which Corey's embarrassed about his line. I was making fun of him for it, and because it loops around the Paso Robles basically. And you must be out of beer already, right? Are you out of beer, Corey, over there?
No, not yet. We bring extra.
Okay.
We do.
Good move. All right. So, Chad, while they're tasting this beer, why don't you tell us, what the impetus for this panel was? What was your idea to start?
So the impetus for the panel was really kind of looking at where we are now. When all of us get together and talk about where's beer at, where we are, where our breweries, kind of where we came from and where we've gone, it's really kind of an interesting time. Beer has changed drastically. And maybe when you've been in it for 10 years, maybe that's a really short time frame. And so, looking at the long term and looking at where things are at and where things are going, I don't think anyone sitting up here ever would have guessed kind of the haze craze and what that brought and everything. But I don't know that we all would have necessarily guessed, same thing, like for the sour and the power of sour and everything that was. So it's neat to see where we've all come from, where we all got started and when we were just really, experimenting and playing around and putting beer in barrels and really interested in what was going to come out. And now, as sort of established breweries for what we have and established brewers and brands, it's kind of what's next. We're always driving in that direction. And probably what you're going to hear is that we don't know what's next. Yeah. But what are we interested in doing and what's the consumer interested in doing and how does that play with everything else that's going on in beer?
Sure. Can you guys hear okay out there? You good? Okay. Excellent. Just checking. All right. So I love this topic. When Jay started, he was the first all-sour brewery that I knew about at the Rare Barrel, which I thought was a horrible idea. And luckily I was wrong. It was like the right time for sour beer, and sour beer really has taken off. Chad, I think you're right that it's interesting to see the haze craze. I was asking my bartenders, I have a tap house too, like people used to ask, like, what's your strongest beer? That was always the most popular question, or what's your hoppiest beer? And I asked my bartender the other day, like, what's the question you get asked most now? And it's, what's your haziest beer? Which is kind of a stupid question if you think about it. Like, isn't there a threshold of haze? Like, at some point, it's just fucking hazy, right?
What's your most flawed beer here?
Yeah, like, it's just really...
Here's a glass of yeast. Here's a glass of yeast. Enjoy. It's like, that looks like milk.
It's really weird. What's your wettest beer? It's like the same... It's a stupid question. I'm sorry. If you ask that question at a bar, you should stop. It's just my advice. All right, Jeremy, tell us about the beer in our glass right now from the brewery, and then we'll discuss this topic.
Yeah, absolutely. The beer you guys have right now is called Foreign Bodies. It's a collaboration beer with Garage Project out of New Zealand. The name of the beer, Foreign Bodies, comes from basically the concept of the beer. And the concept was to bring over some native yeast from New Zealand that the Garage Project boys had captured. And then we kind of went around our cellar throughout that day and tasted, I don't know, 20 or 30 different projects. And basically the guys at Garage Project kind of zoned in on some of the yeast-forward flavors of some of our beers that they really liked. And so we used several different barrels to inoculate other punch-ins of this beer. So it's basically 8 different fermentations that were blended together and aged on loganberries and nectarines. But kind of a different take on this project than we usually do with other concepts, and that really was that we wanted a mixed culture beer complexity, but we wanted to control that mixed culture. We wanted several barrels of one type of thing and more barrels of another type of thing. We didn't want to blend everything together and let it age together. We wanted to select the appropriate amounts of beer from each barrel for the final blend. And I think it shows a lot of great yeast character. I mean, the fruit obviously there's a lot of red berry fruit in there, and a lot of stone fruit character as well. But the fruit's really powerful. But I believe there's a lot of yeast influence there as well.
The fruit together is a bit of watermelon, actually, between the berry and the nectarine together. I get that in the nose. I get that in the flavor. It is fruit forward.
Yeah,
I like
it's
that.
very fruit forward.
Is a lot of how many pounds of fruit per barrel in this? Do you know?
It was pretty subtle.
Okay.
There's about 1,000 pounds of nectarines for a 30-barrel batch, and about 600 pounds of loganberries. So it may sound like a lot, but sour beer over the years is have been developing and changing, and a lot of times the amount of peaches or nectarines or berries required 5 years ago and what's required now to really stand out amongst the segment, it's different,
So let's talk about a little bit of the progression of sour beer, if you guys can dive into that. When I first got into sour beer, I liked that kind of punch you in the face, puckery sour. I just loved it. And I feel like it's mellowed out over time, either because consumers' palates have changed, or probably more likely brewers' palates changed and wanted to mellow things out. What do you guys think from where it started to now? Corey?
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. I think most of us producers still drive where some of the market's going for, these specialty beers. When I think of where we were and where we are now, I draw similarities with the first time I got into IPAs. Give me 10% 100 IBU IPAs, and now I drink 0 IBU hazy fruity IPAs. With sour beer, our production, I like more acidity than probably anybody else on this panel, but our acidity is even dialed back now than it ever has been, and it's just going to show. We don't distribute, so I don't get a feel for sales, if you will. I don't get a feel for what the consumers are asking for or wanting. But we make beer that I got an entourage back there waving at me. It's my wife and Rachel, one of our managers. So hi. We're a company of 10 people. We're a company of 10 people, and there's 6 of us here. So 60% of our staff's here right now. But super small. But yeah, I mean, that's where our acidity has been dialed back. We're driving for. I would just say I am driving for more nuance, more subtleties, what I want to drink, and I may be forcing that on our fans. I don't know, but I think things are better now than they've ever been, and without distribution and that kind of feedback. It's just more about what we're wanting and what we're driving for. And so it is subtlety, just as in low IBU, fruity IPAs, if you will, that parallel.
Okay. Jay, what about you? As opening as a sour brewery, and I feel like you were. So after sour had kind of taken off, obviously, or you'd have gone out of business, but early enough that you have probably already made some changes between when you started and now. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. And while Jay does that, can we pour the Crooked Stave beer and get that in people's glass? Then we'll have Chad tell us about that. Jay.
So the question is, what's changed between the beginning and now? Basically?
Just in yours, yeah.
So not a lot internally, I would say. I think the market has changed quite a bit. there's a lot of people making sour beers these days. I think, you go to a lot of these booths out here at this great festival, and usually it'd be for clean beers, and they'd be specialty and really cool, but now kind of every booth has at least one sour beer, I feel like. Hold on 1 second, I gotta chug this beer.
We can wait for that. That's fair.
So yes, thank you. One person, two.
Everyone else is pissed.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the market's different. A more competitive landscape for the brewer side of things. So standing out and remaining innovative is very challenging. And maybe that's changed a little bit of the way we make our beer. I know I see the beer from Chad here is coming out, and it's in a can, and our beer, the next beer, will be in a can as well. So I think, I've been riding on Chad's coattails for quite some time now. So, but I think that's a big difference in what's going on in the brewing industry and the sour beer portion of that industry today. But people do, I would maybe push back a little bit on this part about subtlety and flavor. I think that's what we want on the panel, but I don't know, I see it all the time that getting slapped in the face, or whatever you described it as, Justin, is still the biggest driver of interest out there right now. So I love subtlety, I love drinkability, but now we kind of set up our brewery that 20% of our production or so is the beers that we're going to be crushing as brewers, and then 80% is like, here's all this crazy fruit and stuff, and here you go, which we like, and we're proud of that too. But if we had our choice, I think we would just make our whole brewery that 20% part.
Right. If you think about it, beer's not different than like media. Like everything has to be attention grabbing, right? It's kind of like that's the in-your-face thing. If people don't talk about it, if it's
Justin,
not viral,
you keep spilling your beer.
if it's
like,
not
all
attention,
over
I get
the
excited
Like
about sour beer. Am I spilling it on you too, Jeremy? Yeah, like I guess you can't be subtle for consumers. Chad?
I think Jay's segue into that is actually really perfect about, when we're looking at past, present, and future of beer, and in general sour beer. I remember, Jay and Alex, this was super, super early on. For instance, for us with Crooked Stave, when we got up and going, it was 2010, and at the time, we were the second brewery entirely focused on wild, sour, barrel-aged beers. Before that, it was Jolly Pumpkin. It was the only one we had in the U.S. who really, really focused on that. And so we were kind of getting up and going, and kind of, there are people around. The brewery had already got up and going and was putting sour beer in barrels. That's where a lot of people up here, got their start, or some of the first stuff we were starting to see. And I remember Jay and Alex, coming up after sort of a little talk and asking, like, how much fruit is in this? Oh, we're using, 2 pounds per barrel. And now that's like normal, totally normal amount of fruit. And back then that was like, oh, wow, really?
It's not
we
enough.
Put that much fruit
It's not enough.
in the beer? That was where beer was. That was where beer was 8 years ago. We were like 2 pounds per barrel. We were pushing it. We were talking about, okay, well, Cantillon and Lou Pep, that's 350 grams per liter, but the regular is only 150 grams per liter, and really, really playing around with that and pushing that. Now today, we all stand around and we're all like, oh, what beer did you bring in the festival? I brought this raspberry with fucking way too much fruit in it. And so it's come from back in the day when we were all like, how much did you put in this? How much can we push this? And now we're all like, yeah, we're making little kids juice. I think I'm going to put 6 pounds per gallon of fruit in this, and we're all sitting here saying to each other, like, yeah, it's way too much fruit. But yet we're all doing it because the consumer's like, I can't get enough.
Right.
It's all your fault.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if you guys know this, but
we
the
love
next
subtlety.
new packaging craze is actually juice boxes. It'll have the straw. Chad's already on that.
Yeah. And so we kind of pioneered the way, putting traditional wood-aged sours into cans. And right as everyone's about to catch up, we're going into juice boxes. Yeah, we've got a patented method. We're going to put a little piece in it, so when you pierce the top, and the carbonation kind of comes then, and yeah, probably put hops into it too, so like the hops will kind of come out and nucleate in the juice box.
Yeah.
And probably some hazy.
That
too.
Guinness
like
widget has nothing on Chad.
Yeah, so we're gonna put 3 widgets in it: one for lactose, one for fruit, and one for hops. 4, one for carbonation. Yeah, so
Just
4,
drop the mic now.
4
You just-
widgets per box.
Yeah.
That's the future of beer.
Our juice pack 4-packs come with a toy though, so
Are they 16 ounces or 12 ounces?
you know there's 16. No one buys 12, dude. Look at that. Look at our cans right there.
Bigger is better.
Chad, tell us about the beer from the can that we're drinking.
So the can that got passed around is Sour Rosé. It's a beer that's always fascinated me. What? Thank you. Woo. It's a beer that's always fascinated me. When we started doing some of the 100% Brett beers, it was really kind of unconventional, unorthodox to think of this idea of putting it into a can. And so I have this note from 2012, put St. Bretta in a can. I always wanted to do it. It actually took us till 2017 when we started playing around with the cans. We started kind of doing R&D on them, and then it was 2017. And letting them age for 6 months, seeing what carbonation was going to do and all these things, playing around can liners, all this stuff to make sure and to really look at it. I knew putting wild beer in a can was, kind of this mentally weird, right? These are beers that go in 750 ml cork and cage or bottle conditioned. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to show that Brettanomyces beers can be subtle, can be nuanced. Crooked Stave, we've always been about quality and education. The idea is to make a high quality product and educate the market with it. I've always kind of taken this opinion that, back when we were all starting breweries, no one really understood Brettanomyces that well. They thought it couldn't ferment beer. They thought it just made acetic acid. People still think that Brettanomyces means sour. You gotta have the bacteria to create the acidity. Brettanomyces is this wild yeast. So we've always wanted to educate the market. And so with that, I mean, honestly, cans sell beer, and cans are a way to get beer into people's hands. I drink more of my beer now that it's in cans.
But before, when you said we expected those beers to be in cork and cage, I feel like those cans didn't sell beer. In other words, were you worried that the consumer would think of your product as of a lower quality because it wasn't in a cork and a cage?
Yeah, absolutely. And even when we moved to 375s, and then when we moved from 375s to 12-ounce six-packs, we would see people, because the price point on it was normal, $12 a six-pack type thing. And so people assumed that we were just making cheap beer all of a sudden. They didn't realize that actually we were blending in large proportions of like 1- and 2-year-old golden sour beer into these cans. We weren't even doing that back when it was in a bottle. So we started doing stuff that was actually even longer aged and longer sours, but because of the price point, people thought we cheapened the product or that we were doing something different. Yeah. And I mean, the beer's changed forever and always has, but it wasn't about that. Price point is a way to get beer into people's hands, and we can't educate the market and get that beer into people's hands if we're not putting it in an affordable price point. For
okay,
those
so
beers.
that's kind of, if you don't mind me asking, or if you don't mind answering, did sales decline before the consumer figured out that you weren't cheapening the beer? And they were like telling their friends, no, you should go buy that Crooked Stave in cans. It's
with
good.
Cans? With cans?
Yeah.
No. We saw such a massive pickup.
It just went right up.
Because the 375 ml bottles, were just, the single serve format was just going kind of down and down and down in distribution. I think the problem is that we weren't putting enough rarity into the beer. And because it wasn't rare, then people kind of didn't want it. When we put it into cans, it was a totally different mentality. Now it was available, and you could take it camping and do that stuff. So we saw a huge, huge incline. And then that led to kind of the release of Sour Rosé, which, is a traditional sour beer. So Sour Rosé takes us about 3 months to make. And we have the cellar that we filled with all the fooders. So we're able to package Sour Rosé every single week just because of all the fooders we have filled with it. And it's all whole fruit, all the organisms from the beginning, so we don't have to take any shortcuts or do anything just because we're set up to make traditional sour beer. And same thing, we thought we made 3 months worth of that beer, and we made 3 weeks worth of the beer. We launched, and then we're out for 6 weeks, almost 8 weeks, because we had to catch up.
Buy more fooders. It's crazy.
And so it's all about the education. As soon as we jump up sort of from our tiers of beers from Sour Rosé to the next level, We go into 375s. We go to 750 ml cork and cage. And I still love to put those creative or outside the box or overly fruited sours into a nice, beautiful package and cork and cage and bottle condition them for a year. And yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about that too. Why don't we pour the Rare Barrel beer from Jay Goodwin here, and we'll let him tell you about that in just a minute. But Jeremy, so the brewery is, you guys are, that bottle is your thing. It's iconic now. The brewery bottle. And I know that Jay just mentioned he's going into cans. Is there a future of your beer in cans at the brewery?
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually been in cans for about a year and a half now. Okay. And to harken back to a question that you did ask Jay is, I'll answer it and jump in on it. Not Jay, sorry, Chad, but we definitely did see a decline in...
When you went to cans?
No, we saw a decline in 750 format in market due to the fact that, as Chad had mentioned, it wasn't rare enough. There was too much of it, and it was a situation where people wouldn't consume at the same rate that they would consume in a can format. So we're definitely behind the curve there, but we saw that not only was it an opportunity, but it was a business necessity that we went into cans. So the Bruery brand went into cans about a year and a half ago with Mischief, Horchata, most of our main distribution beers. And then those beers started selling super, super well.
And went right back up.
Right back up, yeah.
Chad knows.
But the big thing with that is you are in a lot of ways lowering your price point per ounce. So I think you need to realize that you're doing that, and you're doing it, as Chad said, to educate and actually get some movement, get these beers moving into customers' hands. So the big thing on that point is if you consciously know that you're making your beer more affordable. Yeah. I'll use that term instead of cheapening, right? If you're consciously making it more affordable, then you need to build out that backside of your portfolio as well and make sure that the things that are special and rare keep coming as well, And so it's really about diversity, having a product that you can make a low margin on, let it fly, get into people's hands, then having another product that you really spend your time on and you stay true to your values and who you were and why you started doing the things you're doing. And it's really important for us at the brewery that we make a lot of beer in stainless tanks now that we're selling through distribution, and it's fantastic. It's lovely. It's easy to drink, and people love it. But we're a barrel aging brewery. That's what we do. That's how. That's why people know the brand, and those are the battles that we've already fought and won. And it would just be a shame to let that go. So that. Honestly, I'm like a conscious person with that. Like I'll work my ass off to get all these products out there to market, but I have all these special products that need to get done, need to get finished, and that story needs to be told. Sure. So diversity is big. Having products that kind of touch everybody. A nice little slight tart beer, a nice little yeast forward Brett beer, and then really embracing sour beer from barrels that's complex and takes 3 years to make. Yeah.
As a consumer, would you join me in a round of applause for affordable, wonderful beer that you're not cheapening it? You're just it's expensive to make beer, and I've always kind of had the backs of brewers when those bottles get expensive. But the price point was going up for so long that I was just worried that it was never going to come back down. And if it did, that I might have cheap beer. But as Jeremy, as you mentioned, it's not cheap beer. It's just quality beer at an affordable price point. So I appreciate it. Jay, tell us about the. I don't know whether to yell at you or thank you that Rare Barrel just put a hazy IPA in my glass. Tell us about this beer.
Thanks, Justin. This beer is called Cy Boogie. Also good. Two fans of Rare Barrel. Thank you. It's a double IPA. We actually serve the regular unsour version in our tasting room, and it's about 10% alcohol at that point. Which I guess I don't know a lot about IPA. We might be alcoholed out of double IPA and
I
into
don't know
triple.
either. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think that's double.
I think it's on the internet. I could have looked it up, but essentially what we do is we make a clean, hazy IPA, and at the very, very end of the process, we blend in about 20% of the total volume in our barrel-aged sour beer. And the reason we do that is, number one, obviously, to make it sour. A lot of sour IPAs or tart IPAs you'll have are kettle soured, or some people even pasteurize barrel-aged sour beer. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but we decided to do it this way because that's what tasted the best in our early trials. There's a lot of concerns out there that I have had for stability long term in the can. If we want to get into that, we can. But that might be a little tedious.
Well, you could just quickly say what the concerns are. Is it oxygen or something?
No, so I mean, oxygen is always a concern, but you have a clean beer that finishes at 1 gravity. Then you have a mixed culture beer, which includes bacteria and Brettanomyces, that finishes at a different gravity. You got to worry about hyperattenuation of the clean beer by the active cultures in the mixed culture beer. So, as Chad knows, Brett is cool. It does cool stuff. Can make cool beers. Some strains are going to bone dry and 0, and then others don't go down that far. So we just use mixed cultures that don't go to 0. And actually, what convinced us to do this is we had made a beer like this that was for draft only, and we have this small machine at the Rare Barrel. It's kind of like, I don't know, like the smallest canner you could imagine. It's like this big.
It's not a slushy machine?
Yeah, it's smaller than a slushy machine.
Yum.
Which we've also tried. But we can talk about that's the next panel.
Yeah. Slushy beer.
Mastering make your best slushy beer. But so we just canned some up and then warm stored them for a year. And then a year later, we had them with a bunch of other mixed culture hoppy beers. And my favorite beer was ours that was in the can for a year warm.
Really?
Which we didn't even really do that for any reason but to try it out. It wasn't overcarbonated, didn't develop off flavors. It was great. And that's what convinced me to, even though we market this beer as drink fresh and, keep it cold, I think we're going to find after about a year of making these beers that they're going to age really well.
You're going to say drink old and store warm?
No, I'll never say that because it's too much of a risk factor. But I think they actually will age very well. So,
I bet if Chad does it, you'll do it.
Oh, for sure.
Everything Chad does works.
Yeah. I've been trying to get handsome for like many years, but it's not working for me. So
you just keep trying, Jay.
Thank you, Justin.
So I don't. Is the sourness subtle in this to you? Like, does anybody?
Thank you. So here's the problem. We should have started with this beer because
right.
The acidity is subtle. And then once you have like 2 sour beers, it's like, dude, why did you just serve us this IPA? Like, what are you talking about? This is not, and I'm seeing a lot of head nods, like, this is not a sour IPA.
So you're saying we would have perceived more sourness if we started with this?
Yeah, and even sometimes we blend in like such a light acidity that every time we have the final blend of our sour IPA, I go, and we've already kegged up our regular IPA. I taste them side by side, and there's a huge difference. Okay. I mean, just think about, a regular IPA, that bitterness and that mouthfeel. I think it's a lot. The acidity in this really cuts back on that to me. But yeah, it would have been ideal if we had this first. But hey, here's the IPA to break up the middle of this panel. You're welcome.
It's a good beer, and sour IPA, by the way, has come a long way. I remember after I got into sour beers, some Belgian brewery made a sour IPA because I thought, we should try this hop craze thing. It was fucking awful. It was terrible. Like, hops did not go well with sour beer. But you've kind of figured out, I think, how to make hops go well with sour beer.
Cool. Shout out to Belgium.
Yeah. Sorry, all of Belgium, for screwing up hoppy sour beer. Let's pour this side project beer from Corey King.
I'm good.
Corey, do you make a sour IPA yet?
Nope.
No. Are you going to any time of the?
Nope.
Lies.
No, I'm not.
I don't know. Fill it up. It's
Sorry. These I will say that these 3 gentlemen up here are really good friends of mine. So, anything that I say in disdain or poking at is in love. So we're a very different brewery than a lot of these guys. So yeah, sour IPAs suck.
Well, tell us about the beer that we're about to taste from Side Project then.
So what we're pouring right
Sucks.
now is a la yeah, it does. Yeah. So what we're pouring right now is a la table. For those of you who do not know, Side Project, we're a relatively small brewery in St. Louis, and everything I make touches oak. So a predominant amount of that is tart, funky beer, and then the other portion of it is barrel-aged stouts and barley wines and stuff. So a la table is a 2.5% beer. I was pushing for the bottom of the ABV range as far as I could go. I made this beer for my wife while she was pregnant, so she could drink this on her maternity leave and feel comfortable about it, which she can drink whatever the hell she feels like whenever she had our second born, but she wanted something low ABV to feel more comfortable with, and I was like, let's do this. Well, our kid is now 10 months old, and we released this a week ago. So I am awesome. I'm awesome with timing. I am really bad. The beer took well, thank you very much for the claps, because our son is awesome.
Well, now he's old enough to drink this beer then.
Yeah, absolutely. Our oldest is 2.5, and he's tasted beer, and he does not liking it yet. So we'll work on that. But
It's probably okay.
That's on camera.
Oh, I don't mind. I'm very European about it. Alcohol is not special. It is a beverage. So, anyways, but so I made this because I made this for my wife, but at the same time, like, I wanted to push our fermentation as low as I possibly could. I wanted to develop the complexities that is Side Project without losing the complexities of Side Project, making a 2.5% beer. So while it sat in a bottle since this October now, kind of just cleaning up, doing its thing. Something I found with low ABV sour beers, there's just not a lot of nutrients for the fermentation, and without the nutrients, things tend to go a little bit slower than I had ever anticipated. But with that is a beer that I want to drink every day, all day. It's a beer that we'll never put in cans, ever.
Why? Every day, all day is like a canned beer.
I know. We actually do. So we have a side brand called Sheridan. We do can condition things. That's one thing for me with our beers, Side Project, because our culture is natively caught. Forced carbonating our beers produces some very weird things. I have to naturally condition everything for cleanliness, for cleaning up. And so something we have been experimenting with is can conditioning, which has been very positive on our other brand. And for me, I'm an old wine guy. I would rather everybody sit outside around a picnic table and have a 750 of this and share it like as a bottle of wine and drink it that way as opposed to a can. Nothing against cans. Love you guys. Because we do can some other beers like IPAs and stuff. But for me, it is an easy bottle because at 2.5%, you can crush it. What'd you say? What'd you say?
Probably nothing good. They're just
No,
fucking
I
with you,
said
I'm sure
I
of it.
just whispered to Chad. When did we become the can guys?
Oh,
of
yeah.
all people.
When you have two
Jay's
cans
been
up there,
doing
look at
cans
that.
for like 5 minutes, and now he's the
look at
can
Jeremy
guy.
Jeremy and I are on the same page down here. You guys have cans. Look at that thing. Yeah.
Hey, one more thing, since I had the chance to talk. That side boogie that you guys had, that's the last of it. So we brought it here. That's the end of the batch. So
nice.
boom.
Thank you, Jay.
Rarity.
That was it. That was the rare.
That's the rare. Tastes so good. Something else is about to sell out too.
I don't know what else to add to that. If you want to, like, it just is it's 2.5% summer crusher, if you will. It may not be in the crushing format, but I don't care. It's bottle conditioned and it's a beautiful little 2.5% beer. It's not that I don't care. I'm not that cold-hearted.
I didn't want you guys to think I don't
Defense.
care.
I know. I'm not that cold-hearted by any means, but
It's
but
really
you know,
good.
It's just meant to just drink and enjoy. And 2.5%, you could drink 2 or 3 bottles of it and still take care of your children. That's things I have to worry about now as a father. So
Something.
cheers to that.
Something that I think is really interesting, and obviously we're being really playful about it, but right, the kind of point of getting us all together up here and you know, talking about beer, you know, and specifically sour beers and barrel-aged sour beers. You can tell we haven't really, you know, touched on like kettle tarts or anything like that, because all of our breweries are really focused on traditional long-aged, wood-aged sours. But you can see how playful we are all about the package, you know, and that kind of speaks to the past, the present, and the future. So I would really love, it's an extremely hot topic right now at our brewery about what beer goes into what package. And while we have our IPA and our Pilsner, which I call gateway drugs for our consumers, it's to get people interested in our brand. We are all about sour beer. And at the end of the day, if I could only make long-aged sours that were all in 750 ml bottle condition, I would do that. That's exactly what I would do. But that actually kind of goes against our vision, which is to educate people about wild and sour beer. What does Brettanomyces do? What is light tart beers? So I would kind of pose the question, what is your guys' opinion about the future of 750 ml format or 500 ml or anything in there? Because there seems to be a lot of opinion, but the opinion's not really based on the actual data. So, what do you guys all think? Where do you think it's going to continue to go?
Well, so for us, we've hit. I like our size. Like we're much smaller than Chad and everybody up here. Actually, Jay, I don't know. You and I kind of share size, if you will. I think
I'm a little taller, but
no, you're not.
I don't know about
not
your
even
brewery.
close. So for us, we don't distro. So because we don't distro, and we sell everything across our bar. We don't look into packaging as much as I selfishly pick things that I want to be presented that way. It's intentional and unintentional at the same time, if that makes sense. If our consumer was crying for our tart beers maybe in can, or not crying, just that sounds bad, but asking for our tart beers in cans, we do some of those for shared every now and then for sure. And they do just as well, possibly, but just as well as our big bottles. But yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Can I just point out that you've referred to, you said you don't care about your beer on this panel, and you've referred to your consumers as crying on this panel so far, Corey.
I said, yeah, the crying part was not. I was crying for. I meant asking for.
Obviously,
for sure,
Corey
sure.
cares, but I just had to do
yeah,
that. I'm
no,
sorry.
it's great, and I do care about our beer. Obviously, it's just that making a farmhouse ale and the mixed ferment farmhouse ale for me. And I'm an old wine guy. 750s are what I drink. I mean, making beer. I drink more wine at home than I do anything else. I drink 750s, and I open them up, and if I have to recork them, and I recork our bottles as well of beer and put them in the fridge with a champagne stopper and drink them the next day. That's just my nature. And being, like I said, because we're so small, I can do that. And we're selling out of everything we make. So if the consumer was saying, hey, can it, because in order to sell more beer, then that's maybe what we would do, or looking into that, but we're not there.
Okay. Jeremy, what do you think? You've enlightened me that you're doing cans, but 750 is still a big format for you.
It's still a big format, but I always like having that conversation with consumers who say that they can't drink a 750. So I'd like to have it in a smaller format because the 750 is too much for me. And I'm looking out amongst all of you right now, and I'm sure everybody here has drank more than 750.
Oh, this crowd is fine with 750 mil.
And
look at them.
Yeah, and most people that say, as I'm having beers with them, I can't drink 750 milliliters of beer. They're on their third pint. They're people drink, I'm sorry, and I do as well. And I drink that format at home. I drink primarily wine at home, as Corey said. I'm pretty sure a lot of us do, but. In the beer industry, with this, it happens that you try to not drink your own product at home. But this format it's awesome. I love it. I would hate to abandon it in any way.
And you don't think it's going away then?
I'm not going to let it go away personally
Attaboy.
Because I have. Let's put it this way: would you buy a $35 can from me?
No.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, okay, we got one.
Yeah.
All right, so
there's a couple yeses.
Right.
Can I say on the flip side of that is, as much as I love our 750s and Jeremy's, I do effing love drinking your guys' cans on my couch. It's
absolutely.
weird. I just don't. That's just not what I do. It's just not what I do. But that's
but why not both? I do.
I know.
I'll have a 750 and a 6-pack of cans in my fridge every night.
I know.
I drink both of them every night too. By the way,
it's weird for me for my beer, but drinking some. I have no idea. I am.
Well, I do some beers that are in 750s, in 375s, and in a 16-ounce can, and that sounds really great for the consumer. But for a producer, that's 3 SKUs. That's 3 times the amount of label design, the materials. It's not fun to do that.
Yeah, okay.
Unless that's all you do is design, then I guess that's fun. But I would prefer to have certain products be in one format and other super premium products being in other formats.
So, Chad, what do we do then? Because that's an excellent point, that it's just so difficult for you guys to accommodate everything I want to drink out of.
So and like I said, it's a really heated thing at our brewery currently. But, you know, everyone and people want to talk about the numbers, but also talk about their opinions. And all of my staffs come to, and they're like, I just don't want to drink 750 mils. People don't want to drink 750 mils. Like a 375. And at the end of the day, we like getting beer into people's hands. You have to sell 2 375s to equal 1 750.
What?
Can you believe that?
Check that math. Check the math.
Can you believe that? Math.
Check that.
Maths. And the truth is, people don't buy 2 375 mils. People buy one. So in a 750 mil format, you have a beer that you can share if you need to, or you can take it to the dome. And there's nothing wrong with that. And so when I look at the data, when I look in our tap rooms, behind draft, our number 2 selling item is 750 ml bottles. We sell, from a revenue standpoint, anywhere from 4 to 10 times more revenue and volume in 750 ml bottles. So there's all this opinion. We talk with all our liquor stores, you know, hey, what do you think of 375 versus 750? And they're all like, single format's dead, at 375s. And then you stand there for 30 minutes and you watch, and they sell more 750s than they sell 375s. I'm a big fan of not dumbing down our product, says the person who's got sour rosé in a can.
You have a 12-ounce can on the table, Chad.
750 ml
Hey,
bottles.
You have
lose the
awesome.
tone, Corey.
Yes.
Yeah,
Chad.
People are
Stop
still
being
buying
a Chad.
750 mils, and they do great. We sell way more 750 mils in our tap room than we do sour rosé. Like 10 to 1.
So, and we haven't even talked about the traditional bomber that like invented craft beer, the 22-ounce bottle. Like that's supposed to be going away too. So
I will say, like, it's interesting, like, out here when we travel out to California, and I've been
750s.
fortunate to come out here a lot for work and stuff. You guys love, like, your bottle shops that have, like, just bombers, like, around the outside cold boxes. That is not a thing in Missouri. Yeah, and so I don't know.
was it ever? Like, did it go
Never.
away? It just never went.
Never did well, ever, in Missouri. And so it's fun to see regionally how packaging formats vary, for sure. Bombers were never a thing in Missouri. Even the growler, the growler fill, like you guys do a lot better out here with growler fills than we do. If we wanted to do growler fills with IPA, it would not move like you do in California.
So do you not do growlers?
We don't do growler fills IPA. Because we can it all. We can it all, and draft is for on-site.
And just take it in a 6-pack.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting, like how regionally actually some of these things are.
That's a good
The
point.
more I didn't realize it until we had the brewery and started thinking about like doing IPA and shared and stuff, like just when we traveled, like God, in St. Louis bombers die, but 750s don't.
Okay.
It's so strange.
All right.
You don't. Yeah. I don't.
Chad, Jay.
750s do well for us still. They do
Really?
really well, actually.
Okay. Well, we're out of time, and they're out of beer. And there's a lot more beer to be drunk out there. Can we get a round of applause for our panel here? Yeah. The Bruery, Crooked Stave, Rare Barrel Side Project. Thank you for sharing your beer
Thanks,
with us
Justin.
today. And good luck figuring out what's next for sour beer. We'll just wait for it.
Hey, thank you guys for coming
Thank
out.
you. Cheers.